Hey everybody, I'm Jalen.
And I'm Casey.
And this is the Jalen and Cacie Stories. Isn't it these are the Jalen and Cacie Stories?
I don't know, you the grammar
And these
person.
are the Jalen. I know it's proper grammar. I'm trying to remember how we actually said it. We may not have said it proper grammar. I think it's these are Jalen and Cacie Stories.
I think we said these are the Jalen Cacie stories.
Did we though? Because you could say
play
this
it
if you're
back.
saying it's the show. I gotta go watch another episode.
Play it back.
That shows you how long it's been since we've done a Jalen and Cacie Stories.
It's been a while. We have, yeah, it's been a minute.
Yeah. To all of our OGs who've been watching from the beginning, let us know. You know you're an OG if you remember Tauntaun.
Who is Tauntaun? That is the question.
Yes, who is Tauntaun?
You about to tell
I
who?
was about to say it, but no.
Who is Tauntaun?
If you don't know what Tauntaun is.
Put it in the comments.
Find the
No, don't go in the playlist. I want you to right now put in the comments.
No idea if it's playlist or not.
Who is Tauntaun? The question is, who is Tauntaun? Put it on the screen.
Yeah.
Who is Tauntaun? Can you remember?
And if so, you get a digital cookie. Wait, well, I'm doing what on the screen?
You gonna put the question on the screen?
Why? We're saying the question.
I know, babe, but you know how I like to do extra little editing. It makes things better.
I'm trying to get this out in a week. I got 1 week to edit.
You can do it. Who is Tauntaun? Put it in the comments.
Ain't even necessary graphic.
It is.
Okay, today's topic. I'm looking now because I've got a tablet here with the my notes.
It's actually mine. That's why it's pink.
Okay. Whatever. It's the Jalen and Cacie tablet.
Technically, yes.
It is. Thank you. What was I saying? Today's series. Thank you for watching Jalen Cacie Stories. We're back. We're rough. Apparently, let's not be like our new background. We debated where to sit in the house. Today's topic is I'm going to go based off of my notes. I wrote this like last year, I think. It's how to live godly as a single man.
He's kind of copying off of my message.
Hold on, it's subtitle, with eyes set on marriage.
How to be single and happy. The book that I wrote. That's amazing.
It was not a spinoff. This is a
it's a spinoff.
And
just a shameless plug, but if you have not downloaded the book, How to Be Single and Happy, you need to go ahead and do that. It is on Amazon right now, or go to our website, jalencacie.com, and you can download the PDF.
Yes. Now, I actually wrote a whole e-guide for it, and it's how to live godly as a single man with eyes set on marriage. Another way to put it is, that's probably the best way to put it, honestly. But the concept of this is, I've seen it a lot, but you're a man, and you hear a lot from women, but there's a man who is unmarried, and we're going to use the term single, although there's much more relation to the word single, but it's a common used word. It's an easy search term on YouTube. So I'm going to use the word single synonymous with unmarried, although the concept of singleness is a lot deeper than that. It'll probably do a whole separate series on that. Maybe that'll be the next series. Mm-hmm. But for now, I'm using the word single to mean unmarried, a man who is unmarried. And so you're unmarried, you're not in a relationship with anyone, but you have a desire to be married God's way. And oftentimes it's a question of, all right, how do I get from A to Z? How do I find a godly woman? Should I be looking? I talk to women who don't seem to be interested, or I don't know how to talk to women, or, I don't know what the right timing is. I don't know who the right person is. I don't know how to, there's a lot of don't knows. And you hear it a lot from the female perspective, mm-hmm. but it also comes a lot from the male perspective too. And so I wanted to share that. But what I'm going to share is not necessarily a roadmap of how to get a woman, but a roadmap of how to live as an unmarried man, good and stable in the eyes of God, and in preparation as he forms you into a husband. Because once you are formed into a husband, he will then direct you into the journey of finding a wife. Not searching for a wife, but finding one.
Exactly.
And by the end of this series, I have 3 main points. So there's maybe at least 3 parts. And hopefully I can tackle the first point in its completion today. But that is what we're talking about. So be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next videos in this series. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Leave a comment if you have any questions.
So ladies, if you have brothers, mm-hmm. if you have nephews, if you have a husband, or anyone that you think needs to hear this, go ahead and share this to them.
And that's the other thing I want to say. Whenever we talk about topics that are directed towards single people, we have a lot of single subscribers on this, mm-hmm. or unmarried subscribers on our channel. It's still a good concept for married people to listen to, because if it's principles you missed that you did not gather,
you still have to learn
grasp, them. So here we go. All right. So the first concept, there's 3 points here, and point number 1 is learn submission. Mm-hmm. All right, submission is hugely important. We know in marriage because there's scriptures in Ephesians where the Apostle Paul talks about it. But for some reason, one thing that I think people miss a lot is that in order for a man to quote unquote require submission from his wife, he first must be a master of submission himself. A good leader is someone who knows how to follow.
Exactly.
A good leader is someone who knows how to serve. You don't even know if your wife is properly submitting to you if you never submitted yourself. You have no right to require submission of someone if you don't know how to be submitted yourself. You got to understand that Jesus, who the King of Kings, was submitted to the Father. The system of submission that God created amongst human beings, where there is a person submitted to another human being who operates as a prophet of God or representative of God, as a man or woman of God. And women can do it too, because you look at the Judge Deborah, you want to read that account. That'll mess with your theology if you think that women can't be leaders. But this concept of submission that God created, it was like the safety valve that made sure that he could test the hearts of people. And so there's a lot of men who desire to be husbands, and they understand that you must be the leader in your house and all of that. Yes, we need manly leaders. You want to look at what's wrong with our society today. We're lacking men behaving as leaders. We need leaders. But you don't know how to be a leader unless you know how to serve. Well, Jalen, where did you get that concept from? From Jesus.
Yeah.
He said that, and he's talking with his disciples. I know in the scripture, maybe I'll throw it up on the screen. More editing for myself. Maybe I'll throw it up on the screen, the passage it comes from. But Jesus was talking to his disciples and saying, basically, I'm going to paraphrase it. I'm going to teach you guys how to properly be a leader. Because in the world, what they do is they exercise dominion over one another. It's slavery, subjugation, okay? He said, that's how they do it in the world. But he said, I'm going to teach you the kingdom way. And he said, the greatest among you will make himself the least by serving. That's the greatest leader, the one who serves.
Submission is not a weak term. To submit doesn't mean you're taking a posture of weakness. That means you are taking a posture that will allow you to walk in the grace and the authority of the person that you are submitting to.
Excellent. Yes. That's praise God for that. No, continue. That was good.
So if you're submitting unto Christ, that means you're going to walk in the same grace and the same authority as Christ in your marriage. And what a powerful position to be in. That means you can be safe all the way around.
Yeah. And when Jesus was teaching this principle and he began to wash the disciples' feet, I believe it might have been Peter that said, no, Lord, don't do that. Because it messed with his mindset of what a leader was. He's like, no, you're the son of God. Like he had a revelation. I should be washing your feet. And Jesus is like, no, I'm trying to teach y'all something here. This is how a leader behaves. He said, the Son of Man came to serve, not to be served. Is the Son of Man deserving of service? Yes, he is the King of Kings. He's our Savior. He's our Lord. We are required to submit ourselves to him and his authority. But he's telling them, but I didn't come here to require that of you. I came here to serve you. That's what I came here to do. And when you understand that the leader of all leaders is teaching you, this is how you lead. I came to lead. Then you understand how you, quote unquote, earn the submission of others. You know, within the church, you know, say there's a guy's session happening and things like that. The man may say, well, she never submits to me. And one may say, well, he doesn't pay attention to me and things like that. And I believe I heard my pastor, Dr. Del Davis, say this at one point. But you can't make your wife submit to you. You can't make anybody follow you because human beings are free will agents. To make someone follow you is called slavery.
Exactly.
We've done that before. It exists.
And it doesn't
still
work.
Exists in the world today.
It doesn't work.
But that's making someone. So there's nothing you can do. If you came to me and said, why should someone submit to me? She don't listen to my leadership, things like that. Blah, blah, she doesn't respect my leadership. My answer to you is tough. You can't make her do that. You have to display something that she has to choose of her own volition to follow. Submission is always voluntary. The moment it becomes forced, it's subjugation and slavery. So it's like, okay, so all that, I haven't gotten to my point yet. I just want to lay out the foundation.
I just want to kind of go back a little bit. You were talking about Jesus when he washed the disciples' feet and how he said that I came to serve.
Yeah.
And even though they didn't understand that because they had a mentality that, oh, you're actual God in flesh form, we're supposed to be serving you. But here's which is true. Yeah. But that's kind of the point. If you're serving me and I'm serving you, we are meeting each other's needs.
Yes.
And no one can go lacking. So there's no room for subjugation. There's no room for slavery. There's no room for dominance of each other because we both are looking to be submitted to one another because submission is to be a servant unto one another.
Yeah, and that's the other point men don't get, that if you are submitting to you, there's a billion times in your marriage where you're submitting to her too. And that just blows
And I would just say, just from experience now, that once you started walking into a relation of being serving me, it opened a door for me to love him more and to desire, man, this man is serving me and he's meeting my needs. And so I'm going to do the same thing unto him. It ministers unto your wife. So you have a wife that seems to, in your mind, not submit to you. What are you doing unto her?
Yeah.
I mean, because I'll be honest with you, if you're treating someone loving and gentle and caring, you meet their needs, unless that person is just a rock or the devil himself, that person's heart is going to begin to break and want to do the same thing.
No, it's 100% of the time. So there's two options to what happens when you do this. And the scriptures that talk us about.
I know somebody will comment. My wife is just the devil himself.
Yeah, whatever. People, it's almost like, well, why are you here if you're not here to submit and learn to what we're trying to say? Listen to what we're saying. Oh, we know you think you tried everything. Yeah. Trust me, you haven't. I can tell you all the times I've struggled with something. I thought I tried everything until I found the answer. Then I realized, no, I didn't try everything. So if you're listening to this and saying, well, this don't work for me because I tried everything, you're wrong. Don't reveal your stupidity by commenting, I tried everything and didn't work. You just revealed your foolishness, that you haven't reached your end point yet. Trust me, I've been there. Okay, back to what I'm trying to say here.
Let me say that.
What I'm going to say here is that the scripture, Luke 6:38, give and it shall be given unto you. Treat others how you want to be treated. And then back in Proverbs, treating someone with kindness, although they didn't treat you that way, pouring hot coals on their head. All right, so this is what happens. When you do unto someone else what you're not getting back from them, one of the things will happen. A, you're going to reap the harvest back. It's going to break through their exterior and they're going to become more like you, because like a mirror effect what you're doing. You're sowing a seed, you're getting a harvest, and they're going to begin to do that to you. Or they're going to remove themselves from your life because their rebellion against the love of God, that's what you're pouring onto them. They're holding on because they're still a free will agent. They can decide to push back against it. They hold on so tightly to their rebellion that they can't stand to be in your presence because they can't stand to be in the presence of God. And you're literally bringing God into the situation, and they will separate themselves from you. And then you'll get the harvest back from someone else, from somewhere else, because God's going to make sure you get your harvest. But if that person refuses to be the person to return it back to you, then they're going to remove themselves. That's just the two options that come, no matter what. Anyway, we're still talking to unmarried men, though. But I'm just, but listen to this. We're finally getting into the point. Point one, learn submission. Anything you want to say before? Okay. And the passage I have here is Matthew 23:11, which I should have just read this because this is what I was talking about. But he who is greatest among you shall be your servant. That's the passage I was talking about right there, when Jesus said that.
So I can say you're not a great person unless you are a servant.
Oh, yeah. Yep. You want to be great at anything? Be a servant.
Yeah.
Find out how to serve.
And you really got to do that from a good heart. Because I know of a lot of people who do a lot of acts, who do a lot of things that seem good, but it's not coming from a right motive and intent. They're doing it to get a response from someone, or a response from their wife or their husband. They're doing it, in this case, the husband, or there we are talking about husbands, right? Or single men. But men are trying to do this to get a response from a woman or their wife or whatever, and it's not coming from a good place in their heart. It's, I do this and then I expect you to do this for me. Yeah. Exactly. And that's not servanthood.
So the best way to, as an unmarried man, to make sure you don't run into this issue in your marriage is to work it out. So the three principles that we're going to talk about here, and I'll probably mention the other two to give you a teaser after we get through this one, is that the three principles are principles that you need to know to have a successful marriage, but you need to learn them while you're unmarried so that you don't have to learn it on the go. You can learn it on the go, but it's better to learn it as an unmarried man, and it'll help you even with the process of understanding who a wife is and what it means to be a husband. So the principle I'm going to share is how to do this pre-marriage. All right. One of the most important qualities of a godly man is the ability to lead. In fact, every man was born to. However, you can't be a good leader if you don't first understand how to serve. You will have many opportunities to submit to another person's leadership. I suggest you take them. So a good way to practice submission, work a job and keep that job. I don't care.
That seems funny, but that is a real thing. People cannot keep jobs.
Women, let me help you out here. Good way to know, is he a good man? Is he a good husband material? Can he keep a job? Ask him for a resume. And see
Longer
if
than a year, y'all.
Yes.
Longer than a year.
You need to know. And it's like, well, he's really young. You know, we met in high school. We're sweethearts about to get married. We're like 18, 20. I got no problem with that. You can get married young. Was there a school club? Was there a youth group in church? Something that he commit, a sports team? Does he have a pattern of being a quitter? Mm-hmm. Because it's not just that he's a quitter and can't complete something. He's probably got an issue with submission. Yeah. He's probably got an issue with authority. And if you women try to submit yourself to a man like that, he will destroy you because he does not understand. And he will definitely
frustrate you.
Oh, yes. Sure. But he doesn't understand what leadership is. Mm-hmm. All right. So work a job in the marketplace and keep it. Don't be the type to hop from job to job just because you don't like the boss or the coworkers. Listen to what I'm saying, because a lot of young men struggle with consistency. And they're constantly starting new jobs or new businesses. I'll say this. I love entrepreneurs. I'm an entrepreneur myself. But entrepreneurship sometimes is a facade for a lack of submission. Yeah. Because you really don't like listening to someone, having someone as a boss tell you what to do. You're tired of being told what to do and feel like you're not getting compensated enough for being told what to do. And so you decide, I'm going to go do it for myself. But oftentimes you end up not being successful and starting 4 or 5 different businesses and getting nowhere with them. Not because this is just your journey and, you know, you got to keep trying until you get there. No, you want to keep trying and never get anywhere because you never learn submission.
That's because people most time have an overinflated opinion about themselves. Yep. And because they're not submitted, they're not able to listen to someone and say, hey, man, this is how you should respond. This is how you should talk. This is how you should dress. This is how you should do things. Yes. Everybody wants to be myself, be expressive. But when you're trying to get to certain levels in life, you have to submit and walk in someone else's grace because they've been there already. They know what to say. They know how to dress. They know how to walk. They know all the pitfalls and things. And you're not going to get where you think you're going to get if you don't learn submission. And this is a big problem in men.
Yes.
Because, you know, I got so much potential. And we talked about this in the past. Be careful of being with somebody with a bunch of potential with no proof, with no, like you talked about, no track record of being committed to something for long term. Because trust me, if they're a person who's in and out of stuff all the time, they're going to be in and out of your life too.
Let me give you an biblical example of someone who had a long track record of consistency, and they were young too. When he was selected to be king, David. You know, his track record of consistency and submission was tending those sheep. And based on just a few lines of dialogue you see there, you can tell there was not a healthy relationship amongst that family in Jesse's household.
They had issues.
The way his brothers talked about him, the way his father thought about him, didn't even bring, the prophet said, bring your sons, and he just self-selected, I'm going to leave the youngest one out there. But the prophet told you, bring your sons. Why you decide, even if you don't think he's going to be selected, only one of those boys is going to be selected, but you brought them all. Why would you leave your youngest out there? I mean, at least let him be there. I mean, only one's we selected anyway, right? At least let him be there. At the very least, he could have helped out around the house to clean up before. Well, why would you think so little of him? Anyway, that's criticism for Jesse. But the point is, he was living in what was probably a dysfunctional household. Another clue I have to that, because he grew up, had some kids, and they had dysfunctional lifestyle too. So I'm pretty sure he learned that from the one he grew up in.
Dysfunction was an understatement.
But anyway, it's another lesson. But the point is, he, even with a boss, his dad, that may not have been the best boss, even with coworkers, his brothers, that probably weren't the best coworkers, he stayed submitted to his job. He stayed committed. He had a track record. The lion and the bear, when he killed Goliath and all that, remember the whole story? We read these, and it's just like, oh, that was a cool story. That's really cool. I want to be like David. I want to be like David. Do you really want to be like David?
And look,
hold the job.
The lion and the bear is like going the extra mile.
Yeah.
Because he could say, well, I'm not being recognized in my home. Yep. I'm not going to risk my life for one sheep. Let the bear take the sheep. Good Lord. I mean,
my fault. I got to be out here risking my life.
Exactly. The bear might be hungry. So let him take the sheep.
Exactly right.
You know, but no, he was an integral person. He had a lot of respect and honor for his father. Even if he wasn't being treated right, he won't do his job 100% and go above and beyond. That's why he put his life on the line to save the sheep.
He did not have to do that.
He didn't have
to. You go
all
the way back to Jacob, he lost some sheep. He was keeping Laban's cattle. And he said that he bore the cost of it. So there was some, I'm not saying that Jacob did anything wrong. It might have happened in the night without him seeing it. But there was a way of handling it if you lost sheep. It's like at the end of the year, you write off stolen deaths and things like that. There's a way of handling that. But David decided, nah, although the sheep is in your jaws, I'm going to get this sheep back. There was something in his character. And that's what made him be selected to be king.
Yeah.
You want to be
Character.
selected by God to be a husband, to steward the lives and the souls of a family one day. Be a person of character, willing to go the extra mile, even if your boss is a jerk, even if you don't like your coworkers.
Because God's going to hold you responsible
Mm-hmm.
for how you handle your wife, your children. I don't care what your complaints are with your family right now,
Mm-hmm.
or if you're not married right now. I don't know what your mindset is about marriage right now is, but God will hold you responsible if you decide to walk in that office of being a husband and being married. He's going to hold you responsible. So it's important that you listen to what we're saying and get this character under your belt, because you don't want to stand before God and say, why did you handle this position, this office of husbandman, and you just abused it?
Yeah. And so you got to handle the office of being just an employee extremely with a lot of gravity and reverence, because as I think it was Apostle Paul that made this one, work as unto the Lord. Mm-hmm. Look past the person who's cutting your paycheck and look unto the Lord. Like, Lord, I'm going to serve this boss like I'm serving you.
Because God is the rewarder.
Exactly.
He's the rewarder. And in our marriage, we both have learned this lesson that we don't expect each other to be the resource of our happiness. Mm-hmm. God is. But we're going to sow seeds of happiness by being servants unto one another, by honoring one another, by doing the word unto one another. Yeah. And because of that, God is rewarder. And if he uses us to be channels or veins for each other to receive happiness, that is fine. But my happiness is not dependent on him and vice versa. But we can't be negative. We can't be sowing ratchet stuff. We can't be dishonorable to one another. We can't be, just mishandling the office that we are in as husband and wife and think that God can bless us, because he will not.
Exactly. And something about serving under extenuating circumstances gives you a heart of compassion for your wife and your children when you're trying to be their leader and it seems like things aren't clicking. But you got to remember, I know what this is like, because I've been in this position. Mm-hmm. And again, you're still practicing submission even unto your wife in the marriage, but we'll get on to that. So even if you don't like your boss and coworkers, use it as an opportunity to hone your ability to work with difficult people. That's something in me that I took as a point of accomplishment, I guess, when I could work with someone that other people didn't want to work with. Like, I would work with a client and then I'll talk to other people who worked with that same client before, and they would say, yeah, man, this person's annoying, or I hate when they come in. I hate when they call. They're just so extra and they're so needy, or they're mean and they're grumpy and they're hard to please. I took it as an accomplishment if I could get a different story when I dealt with them, where I could meet the needs that they needed to be met, treat them with kindness, and I would see the same things that everyone else saw too. Wasn't blind or wasn't naive. I could see this was a difficult person to work with. But I took it as an accomplishment, as if I could successfully work with this difficult person and still get the job done without causing a break in the relationship on behalf of the job that I work for. So that should be your attitude. I would want to work with a difficult person and see if I can preserve a relationship here rather than destroy it. That's important in life. The great thing about submission is that you can do it even when the leadership is lacking in discipline and character. Now, there's always extenuating circumstances. So if your boss is asking you to do something illegal, you don't do something illegal. That's where you exercise what disciples before the Sanhedrin.
What you mean?
When the disciples before the Sanhedrin said, you got to decide if we should listen to you or to God. Because Sanhedrin wants a leadership, but God had told them to spread the gospel. Sanhedrin was saying, don't do it. And they were like, look, we got to listen to God on this one. So there are laws of God that you have to abide by above the laws of man. And so even when it comes to government, things like that, there are times when if they're telling you to do something that's against the laws of God, you got to say no. And negative things can happen to you physically because of that, but you have made that decision. So you may have to make a decision, and there have been people working in places that were dishonest and they got fired because they wouldn't go along with the dishonesty. That's good character. That's important too. Okay. And that's also good character. But even, I'm going to go into this, even in those circumstances, there's a way that you handle that and you handle those people that still shows good character. Yeah. So, but what I'm saying is, let's say you have someone that's just bad character, not doing anything illegal, but is not a very good leader, you can tell. That doesn't matter. You still can practice this submission and practice good character yourself. They may be a bad, domineering boss that doesn't understand leadership and doesn't understand how to serve, but you serve. You serve, because that's what happened with David and Saul. David served. He never went against Saul, and he ended up.
Let God fight your battles.
Yeah.
Like, let God fight your battles. But God will only intervene when you are in a position of submission.
Yeah.
Not when you're trying to tear the boss down or tear your leadership down or anything like that. But when you take it before the Lord and say, hey, God see you being mistreated, take it before the Lord and let him fight your battles. I've seen that operate in my life many, many times, working with difficult people in situations, and it's like, I can't take this anymore. Why am I suffering for this? But I say, okay, God, I'm putting this in your hands. I'm going to trust that you're going to take care of me. And he always have. And I always came out on top. And oftentimes, that very person that seemed like they didn't like me, they were like, you know what? I trust you.
Yep. Yep.
You know, I trust you. Here's just a little small freebie. And my mom used to say, this is a freebie. It's okay if people don't like you.
Yeah.
They don't have to like you. But if they trust you and respect you because you are honorable person and because they can see your value on this team or at a job, they see that you're credible, you're on time, you don't slack and do work, their hearts will change. And they may like you, but it's okay if they don't. Yeah. But respect is a whole different thing.
Well, I'm not going to get a story, but your mom from the pulpit told a story about a woman she worked for that was racist, actually, but affected that woman's heart in an amazing way because she refused to get out of character just because that woman was a hateful person. And so there's no excuses is what I'm trying to say. It doesn't matter. Even when you're dealing with racism, ageism, things like that, it doesn't matter. You still have a way that you can carry yourself, okay? So as much as within your power, stay employed. Practice submission to the leadership of the job that you work on, as much as within your power. All right. One of the best places to practice submission besides the job is your local church.
Yeah.
One of the main points on here probably should be is you should be a member of a local church. But I'm taking that for granted that you are. If you're not a member of a church, listen to the Spirit of God. Let him direct you and plant roots because you need godly authority. And once you do, stay there.
Yes.
If you prayed and God told you this is your place, you had some kind of experience where you knew this is my church, stay there.
Yes.
I'm going to say it again.
Stay there.
I know you're waiting for the asterisk. You're waiting for the, well, only if this doesn't happen, this doesn't happen. Stay there. Because if God directed you there. Well, doesn't God sometimes make people move on and things like that? Rarely. I've rarely seen it. Not unless the only time I've seen it and it be legit is when the leadership was on board with it. But all this cut and run stuff, I've rarely ever.
I mean, you got a person that you know you've had 10 church memberships in a year's time. Like something's wrong with that.
I'm trying to be. My heart is with this church, but I like the singing at this church, so I'm trying to double dip. It's like a lot of bad characters. It's like, well, there are cases. Yes, there's always a case where there's something, and I'm going to tackle that too. But it's not 90% of the time.
No, it's not.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Trust me on that one. All right, once you stay there. All right, so here's some principles when you're a member of a church. It's for women too, but don't allow yourself to be easily swayed by internal drama. I don't care how good the church is, there's always some drama amongst somebody.
Because it's people.
So don't allow yourself to be swayed by that. Don't participate in it.
People
don't participate
bring
in
drama.
Gossip. And don't allow yourself to be offended by the word preached. Okay, that happens. People think that the preacher offends you, so that means he's a bad preacher. Well, Jesus must have been a bad preacher. One time he lost like 90% of his congregation because of a message he preached about communion that they didn't understand. And he didn't feel the need to chase them down and try to re-explain it. He didn't feel the need to do an apology video later to say, I misspoke, I should have used my language more carefully. He just said, bye. I knew who was with me and who wasn't. Don't allow yourself to be offended by the word preached. Submit yourself to the leadership of the church that God directed you to. Yes. And that's why it's important to say that. Because you're like, well, you think I should just make myself a slave to some man or some woman. I said the one that God directed you to. You gotta take that up with him. You gotta say that God made a mistake. Okay?
So be careful when you go to a church and you say, this is what God told me, because you put your mouth out there. I've had some people say, oh, God told me to be here. And then 2 months later, they're gone. I'm like, what happened to God telling me to be there? Well, you know, I just feel like, Lord, lead me somewhere else. Like, come on, God is not fickle like that.
All right. Find a way to serve in that church, no matter how small the job is. If it's cleaning the toilets, clean the toilets. Find a way to serve in that church. Don't just be a couch potato in a seat. Okay? Find a way to be a part of a ministry of helps in some way. Does that be fancy? But find a way to serve in that church. Okay? When you see leadership make mistakes or bad decisions, because the difference, a mistake would be, I don't know what a mistake would be. But anyway, you make a bad move, it doesn't work out. Okay? We threw an event, no one showed up. Then there's bad decisions where it's a bad character decision. Okay? Either way, don't cut and run. or talk about that leadership behind their back.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Pray for them. Pray for them. Once again, pray for them. That's your job.
And see it through. See it out.
Mhm.
I know there are stories we hear all the time. Churches close, pastors leave, things like that, and blah, 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 whatever. But sometimes we don't stay long enough to see it all the way through. Because yes, they are human. They make mistakes. They make wrong decisions, like you said. But instead of talking about them, backbiting on stuff like that, see it all the way through. Pray, intercede, see it all the way through, and ask Lord, how should I stand with this man or this woman? How should I pray? How should I support? How should I cover? What should I do? Instead of just cut and run and dragging them through the mud, listen for the voice of God and see it all the way through, because, we've had experience with this.
Are there extenuating circumstances? Yes. Don't participate in anything immoral or illegal. Something like that's going on, you don't participate, and then you have to leave, because you cannot be working in that church and doing stuff and participating in that, okay? Incriminating yourself and all that. But it's much within your power. Stay planted and submit it, okay? And I want to. It's a story. Your dad, before he was pastoring, he was pastor of a church, and he was in a church, a member of a church, and he was submitted to that pastor, fairly close to that man of God. And there were some things that happened, some decisions he made that were bad or that were negative, things he said that caused rifts and divisions in the church. And if I told you the details of these stories, you would think that he would have every right, her dad would have every right to leave. But he stayed and he remained submitted. And I think there was a certain point, I remember the story correctly, where that pastor came to him and he was wearing the burden of his mistakes. Yeah. He was beaten down by the people because he made some legitimate mistakes, but it was weighing on him. And he went to your father and said, look, I need you to watch me. Let me know if I'm ever doing anything wrong. He had been so beat down and stinking by the people that he was now just wanting somebody to watch his every decision because he didn't trust himself anymore. And your dad said the right thing. He said, look, I'm always going to be here for you. I got your back, but I can't do that. He said, I'm not your pastor. I can't tell you what you're doing right and you're doing wrong. And that was the right answer.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, your parents stayed members of that church until that church actually closed under the weight of the problems and things that went wrong. And then they moved on to another church, but they stayed to the very end. And God honored your family for that.
Absolutely.
Extremely. And before he went on to become a pastor himself. So I'm saying there's ways to handle this stuff with honor. And this is kind of close this part out. If you have to leave a church or a job due to extenuating circumstances, something immoral, something illegal, other things that I didn't mention is, yes, there are asterisks for everything. But if you have to leave, do it honorably.
Yes.
Don't spread rumors once you leave. Don't air dirty laundry, even if the information is true. Sometimes information is not true. And you're operating off of something that someone else told you and you don't know the whole story. So just keep your mouth shut if you don't know the story. I've dealt with things and people come to me and will say something negative about a person that I used to be employed with or that was a client or something like that. And I know the information is true because I had the same experience. But they come to me and I act like I don't know nothing about it. And I don't respond and say, yeah, you're right. That person is trash. This person that. Nope. I just go, okay. Well, that's your experience. I leave it at that. I don't say nothing to the positive or the negative. I just leave it. I'm not going to add in and start piling on and sowing that seed.
Because as I'm about to say, because remember, when you speak, you are speaking seeds for your situation.
Exactly.
Because if you ever get promoted to a position of leadership, trust me, and being a husband is the ultimate.
You don't want your wife talking bad about you out there to her friends, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Are you the type of person that sows seeds like that in your job? So what are you expecting to reap? What are you expecting to reap based on what you're sowing now? This is why you got to learn proper submission. And understanding all these principles, you're like, dang, I haven't been walking in all this. Now you understand what it means to be a leader. And there's not a whole lot of very good leaders out. Well, there are, but a lot of times you run into bad ones. People put in boss positions, they're not necessarily leaders. But you can be a good leader, even if you're never in a leadership position before marriage. So why is practicing submission important? Just to close. Because when you're married, you'll need your household to submit to you.
Yes.
You can't ask for submission if you've never sown seeds of submission yourself. You'll also, if you don't do this right, become a subjugator to your wife and children if you try to require service from them when you've never served in your life. This character of submission will also teach you to serve your wife and children as Jesus served the church. Even as the head of the house, you are still the biggest servant. And that's the key here. Head of the house means you are the biggest servant in the house. You do the most serving more than anyone else. I hear from husbands who feel like, man, I work and I pay for everything and, I do all this and I even help around the house. I just feel like, my wife doesn't do as much as I do. Good. She's not supposed to. You're supposed to do the most. You're the biggest servant in the house. I'm a firm believer of that. You don't got to agree with that statement. But I'm a firm believer. The husband should be the quote unquote hardest worker.
I would say this, as a wife, seeing my husband being submitted to leadership and being submitted to God in the right way, it brings so much confidence in me that he's able to hear from God for me and our son. I don't walk in stress or fear or doubt about where we're going as a family. And even when, for lack of a better term, he makes mistakes or maybe this wasn't the right choice for this moment or situation, he's easily to be course corrected because I know he walks in that submission. And for husbands, from a wife, she needs to see it, okay? Not just out of your mouth. She needs to see you actively being submitted in the right way unto your pastor, on your job, in the Word of God. She needs to see it and she needs to hear it on a daily basis, not just every now and then when you want a reaction from her just to say, I did it. No, she needs to see it on a constant. And I mean, as we continue on this, I share some things that I see Jalen do all the time that really blesses me, that I see that he is walking in true submission. And because of that, our lives have been radically changed, from our relationship to our finances, to our friendships, to everything around us that we affect has changed as a result of this.
Yep. Praise God. So that's part one. Just to give you a teaser. Part two is honor women. Ooh. I really want to get to this one. This is the one I'm most excited about in this entire thing, honor women. Because you think you know what that means, but we don't really know what that means. And it's a failure of honoring women before you ever approach someone that you're interested in being in a relationship with and marrying that destroys a lot of marriages going in. But yeah, practice submission, learn submission. That's key number one. How to live godly as a single man with eyes set on marriage. So
amen.
Thank you everybody for watching. We will be back next week with part two, honor women. So make sure you guys check it out. Subscribe, like, comment, share this video with someone you love, and watch JCTV, our 24/7 live stream on this channel. And love you guys. See you next time.